All right, for these first marker drawing techniques, these first three, I'm just going to be using the French grays. You are more than welcome to use the cool grays, but I'm just going to be using 10%, 30%, and 70%. So if you want to get a little bit more organized as we go through this, this first one we kind of went over a little bit when we drew our apple, but I wanted to show you how when we render, when we use what I call gradual value change and contrast, we can really bring our renderings and our drawings to life. We can give it some depth, some dimension, and just overall a little bit more interesting to look at, less flat. Okay, so the first thing for this base drawing grayscale, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the 10%. Okay, for the face of this cube, I'm just going to apply a single layer of our 10%. Okay, and I'll go ahead and do that on each three of these. Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit about the shade and shadow. Okay, so you can see the face here is just one coat of 10%. So based on where our shadow is drawn, we can tell that our light source is coming from this angle. Okay, so if we're just drawing, you know, a basic square, done, right? We've drawn it, it's done. It's just right here, super basic and super flat. You can see that there's not a lot of depth. But for this one, or for these other two, let's go ahead and give it a little bit more dimension. Okay, so if our light source is coming from the top and it's casting a shadow, we can determine that the top plane here is going to be the lightest. Okay, say this cube is all one value or one color, but because the light's hitting the top, it would be the lightest. Our second lightest value would be the face, and then it'd be a little bit darker here because it would be in shade, okay, because the light's coming from up here. And then down here would be the shadow. The shadow is actually the darkest. So to give this drawing a little bit more dimension, what I'm going to do is actually apply another coat to the face. So essentially bringing this up to 20%. Okay, so it's a little bit darker. Okay, and because we know our top plane is going to be the lightest, I'll go ahead and just put a single coat of 10% on top. Okay, so you can see, and when this dries, you'll see it a little bit better. You can see that there's these values are slightly different. This might be, say that's 1 and the face is a 2. In shade will be the right side of our cube. So if we apply a layer there, let it dry for a couple seconds, apply another layer, make it a little bit darker, and then we could actually let it sit for a little bit longer, and then go ahead and apply that third layer. And then you can see that we're assigning different values to the different planes of the cube. Right, we have 10% up top, the face is 20%, and then 30% in shade. And then the shadow, we can go ahead and jump up to 30% and do a couple coats of that for our shadow, or we could lay down 5 or 6 coats of just the 10%. It's a little bit easier when you start getting a little bit darker to just go ahead and use the higher the higher percentages, the darker valued markers, but you can kind of get the idea of what we're after. So I'm going to go ahead and use 30% here down below, and I'll go ahead and do 2 coats of that. And the thing about these markers is the quicker that you can lay down layers, the less obvious overlap you're going to have. Okay, you can kind of see the overlap in my different strokes here, but if I lay those down quick enough, as the marker kind of bleeds into the paper, it'll dissipate a little bit, and then as it dries, it'll dissipate as well. And then of course adding another layer on top can really help kind of pull it together as well. But if you're a little bit too slow, your marker lines can be really pretty apparent. So if you lay them down quick, then they should come together a little bit. The lines will disappear and dissipate a little bit better. Okay, but if you do see a little bit, you can see a little bit in the face here. It gives our drawing, our rendering, a little bit of visual interest. It's not so flat. So, and that's kind of the nature of the markers anyway. So if you do see some of that, I personally feel like that's totally okay. Okay, I'll let you guys go ahead and fill in the third block, but that's basically what we're talking about. In this case, just real quick, the top again is going to be the lightest, but this side is also receiving some light. So it would be beneficial to give this real depth to have the left plane lighter than the face. Okay, and then again, the shadow can obviously be the darkest value. So that would be a basic base drawing. That's kind of what we did with the apple, and what you guys did here with the first part of your assignment of this European streetscape. Hopefully you guys have put down some nice layers of gray and created a nice base layer that we can actually come back and apply color marker on top of. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here, and then I'll start up a new one for gradual value change.